If you're feeling overwhelmed or burnt out, or your team is telling you they're overwhelmed or burnt out, you might be thinking it's time for a break. We got to put the brakes on. We got to, maybe not take any new clients for a while. But you'd be making a big mistake because it's not what it means. In this episode, we're going to talk about what that does mean. What is that an indicator of? And what do you need to do about it? Hi, I'm Moshe Amsel. You're listening to the Profit with Law podcast. And in this episode, we're going to go into part 4B of uh, a 5-part series about how to be profitable in 2026. And what we're talking about in part 4 is we're talking about hiring and staffing. And a client of mine recently told me that his team is feeling overwhelmed. His team is they're feeling, um, you know, they're 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 stressed out. There's not enough time in the day, um, and he wants to fix it. The reality is that is the ultimate indicator that you don't have enough people on your staff, or you don't have the right people on your staff. Staffing is so important. It's important for, in the last episode, we talked about how important it is for the growth of your business to be able to scale your business. But what we didn't talk about is who should you hire? When should you hire? And that's what we're going to cover in this episode today. The very first indicator that you need to be thinking about hiring somebody is if you feel like you're out of time, you feel overwhelmed, you're needing to make choices like, should I go to my kid's game tonight, or should I stay home and do work that I've got backlogged here? We don't want to be in that position. We don't want our employees to be in that position. But when that's happening, it's an indicator that we're busting at the seams and something's got to give. Now, I did talk about in the last episode, I did talk about this idea or this concept that our business has a cycle, like our heart. And just like our heart pumps atrium to ventricles and then has a phase of resting, our business, we hire people, we fill their plate, and then we have a phase of resting. So it's possible that you're going to push back and say, but Moshe, you said that we should rest. And you're right. We should rest before the stress, right? It could be that the stress is being caused by we did take on too much. We need to back off, right? It could also be that we need to be more efficient. It could also be that we need to do less with more with less, right? Um, and so it is an opportunity for you to introspect and look. And the truth is I didn't cover this in the last episode, and I'll talk about it now. I should have talked about it in the last episode. So many people out there harp on systems and processes to the point that so many law firm owners come into my world and all they have to show is that they've got a bunch of systems and processes, but they wrote these things for themselves. They're operating as a solo. Maybe they have a support staff member, and that's it. And they spent all this time, effort, and energy on creating these systems and processes. The way I like to look at it is a healthy business should be making a 40% profit margin. Well, 20% of the margin comes from just having people filling their plate, serving clients, right? And the other 20% comes from efficiency, comes from having systems and processes, identifying technologies that can do the job better, implementing AI to eliminate needing to hire more people in a specific way in your business. But that last 20% tweak, it's coming at the expense of something else. So you always have to question, do I want to hire, or do I want to systemize and processize, right? And I'll give you an example. Let's say you've got one attorney on staff. You've got a support person for them. You've got a receptionist. You're at your basic one attorney on staff business. So you're doing $1 million in revenue, and you've got this team that and you're at capacity. And now you're faced with, do I hire the next attorney, or do I spend some time getting us more efficient and systemizing and processizing what we do? So let's say that you're inefficient right now. You're making a 20% margin. You're making 200,000. And if you were to systemize and processize, that would unlock the other 20%. That would get you to 400,000. Should you do it now, or should you hire the next attorney, fill their plate, get to 2 million, add an inefficient 20% margin? Now you're making 400,000, but the potential of fixing it from 20 to 40 is now a $400,000 problem, not a $200,000 problem. You see where I'm going with this. In the early stages, focusing on systems and processes is a valiant effort, but it's got a very low return. As your business grows and scales, and as your top line revenue number is increasing, the systems and processes will unlock a higher and greater value for you. So if we can go through a few iterations or cycles of growth before we try to get efficient, you're going to have a much more efficient way of getting efficient later, right? You're going to harness a ton of power then. Now, that's not to say that if you think you can, implement some AI tool that's going to, prevent you from needing to hire 4 people in the next phase of growth, that you don't do that. Certainly, if there's an immediate ROI and it makes sense, and that's the thing that's gonna propel you into the next stage, you can do that. But at the end of the day, AI aside, hiring people is gonna be the thing that moves the needle the most in your business. So how do you know that you need to hire somebody? When you feel full, when you feel like, I can't take another client, when people are telling you they're stressed, they're burnt out. That's your indicator. Now, who should you hire? And this is really the big question, the question that I want to answer on this episode, because there's so much confusion around this. And I'm going to give you a lawyer answer, right? I'm going to give you a lawyer answer, and the answer is, it depends, right? Let me give you a couple of examples. Let's say that you're a estate planning firm. Now, in an estate planning firm that's doing a decent amount of business, the attorney doesn't do that much work. Attorneys are going to push back on me and be like, no, no, no. They don't do that much work, right? You can have a non-attorney salesperson on the front end. So now the attorney is only needed for part of the initial meeting, right? The design part of the meeting where you're determining what they need, right? And then it goes off to somebody who does drafting. There's a paralegal that can interact with the client and get everything that they need. The draft gets reviewed by another drafter, and they go back and forth. Still no attorney touching it, right? Finally, it's ready for the attorney to review. It goes back to the attorney. The attorney maybe has revisions to send it back to get revised, or maybe not. And then we have the signing ceremony with the client, which we can argue the attorney's not needed for either. But even if the attorney was needed for all those things, right? The attorney is only doing a very small portion of the work that goes into this client. So if we're feeling full in that scenario, most likely we need another drafter, we need another paralegal, right? That attorney can probably push through a lot more work. It's probably not the attorney that is the bottleneck. Criminal defense firm. We get to $1 million in revenue. Our attorney is handling 150 cases, and they're feeling stressed. Well, bringing in a paralegal or a legal assistant to help the attorney, it's not going to help much. because most of the work is happening in court or filing motions, right? So it really depends on the business and what the level of effort is for each of the roles. And this is work that we do with our CFO clients in depth, and this is work that really people have a hard time wrapping their heads around, which is to kind of figure out what is the capacity of every role. How many drafts can a drafter do? How many clients can an attorney support, right? Like we need to have these metrics so that we know and we'll be able to be proactive in understanding when we're nearing capacity with somebody. I gave you the example of the criminal defense firm. I gave you the example of the estate planning firm, but I want to go back to a more basic approach that everybody should take in how you approach who to hire, when to hire. If you haven't read the book Traction, I think you should. Gino Wickman in that book introduces this idea of the entrepreneurial operating system. You may have heard of it as EOS. As a matter of fact, we had an episode on the podcast, and now I'm going to go live while I'm talking into my podcast player and look at our feed to tell you what it is. So it was back in, it was earlier in the year. I thought it was later. I'm going to go back to February 12th. EOS defined and its 6 components that drive firm success with Brooke Lively, episode 520. You can get it at profitwithlaw.com/520. So we had a whole conversation around EOS. But basically, one of the things that Gino Wickman in his book EOS outlines is this idea of having an org chart. He sets some rules and parameters of how an org chart is built. Basically, a person can be put into multiple boxes, but you cannot have multiple roles in the same box. So let's say you have drafting, you need 6 drafters, you need 6 boxes for drafters. You can't have a drafter and a paralegal in one box, okay? So anyway, you can read the book, figure out how to do the org chart. You probably find some YouTube videos on it. The important thing is this. I'm a big believer in you need to have an intention with the growth of your business. You need to have a plan. You need to know where you're going. You shouldn't just be flying by the seat of your pants. So if I tell you, yeah, if you're stressed, if you're overwhelmed, your team is saying they're stressed or overwhelmed, go hire. That's flying by the seat of your pants. That's reactionary business operations and business running, and that is not going to get you what you need. It's not going to get you the results that you want. What is going to get you the results that you want is if you create the vision of what it looks like 12 months from now. Let's say last year we did 2 million in revenue and we did 400,000 in profit. A good goal for 12 months from now would be going from 2 million in revenue to say 4 million in revenue or 5, and to go from a $400,000 profit margin profit to say 1.5 million. Sounds like a dream, right? The reality is that the likelihood of you being able to do that, to make that jump, is much lower if you don't have a plan, right? So, what does the plan look like? Well, when we say we need to do, let's say 5 million in revenue, we can then back into what this needs to look like, right? It's reverse engineering. So if I know that every client that I serve is worth $5,000 and I want to do 5 million in revenue, I got to serve, what is that? 100 or 1,000 clients? I think it's 1,000. 5 million divided by 5,000, 1,000 clients. So I can then say, okay, so I have to serve 1,000 clients and divide that by 12. That's 83 clients a month. Now, it's not going to be 83 clients a month on day one. You're going to get there over the course of the year. So maybe by the time you finish the year, you're not at 83, but you're at like 115 or 120. Um, but now I've got a number of clients I need to serve. So now we can start looking at, okay, what is it going to take to serve this number of clients? How many, go back to the estate planning example, how many drafters do I need? How many paralegals do I need? How many salespeople do I need? How many attorneys do I need? Now we can start to have an idea of what the staff needs to look like at the end of the year when we achieve our goal. And now we can start putting that into perspective because, well, rules of management say that for every 8 people, I need a manager. So if this picture has 8 drafters in it, well, I need somebody to manage the drafting team. And if I only have one attorney, then great. I don't need somebody to manage that attorney. Sales. If I need to have X number of sales meetings to create this many clients, maybe I need 2 salespeople. Maybe I need 3 salespeople. So we can map all of this out on the org chart of what our org chart needs to look like 12 months from now. Now you map out an org chart of what your org chart looks like right now, and look at the two side by side. And what's going to happen is it's going to become obvious what are the roles we need to fill over the course of the next 12 months. Now, whenever you do something like this, there's one more step to the operation, and that is the sequencing, right? You have to figure out, well, which one am I doing first, second, third, fourth, fifth, right? So then we have to then look and see, okay, what is the thing that's going to move each of the needles along? And the best way to do this is to start at the end and move backwards. We never start at the beginning and move forwards. Always start at the end and move backwards. Stephen Covey said, begin with the end in mind, right? Very wise saying. The reality is that the end is clear. The end is obvious. The end we can see. So we can also see what came right before it. And that's how you can back into what is the next thing that you need to do, right? Do I need capacity for drafting right away? Well, and part of it is going to have to do with what we have now. Like, are we at capacity or not? So it could be that right now we have plenty of capacity with the attorney. We've got an attorney on staff. That attorney is going to be fine throughout the year. And then we've got, we've got 3 drafters, and 2.5 of them are really busy, right? We've got a drafter with half a day's worth of work, but we've got no room on the sales calendar. Okay, so we need to hire a salesperson first, start getting more sales in. The moment that starts producing and we start getting that third drafter plate full, we need to start hiring the next drafter. So that's really how we play this game and figure out, what does this look like and how does this go? Once you've got your end of your org chart, you got your beginning of your org chart, you've got this mapped out of the differences, you've got your sequencing mapped out, you're now able to approach this whole conversation of hiring from a completely different lens. You don't even have to wait for the point where people are stressed out, where people are full at capacity, right? Because you already have a plan of execution. You know what you're going to be doing. So you're going to be constantly hiring in advance of the needs of that role. And that's going to change the entire game in your business. But that requires you to be very purposeful. It requires you to have structure and a plan. And a lot of people don't naturally operate this way. This needs to be intentional. So the last thing I'm going to leave you with is just kind of this encouraging tip, which is, you've got to create space to have the time to think about these things, to make these plans. You've got to have the space to be able to sit and write down an org chart. Now, I'm a big believer and ascriber to who, not how, and I think that you should have people on your team helping you with this. But I don't think that this is the thing that you extract yourself from. How your business is going to run for the next 12 months, what the vision is, and how you're going to get there is very much part of the visionary role, another term from EOS, from the book Traction by Gino Wickman. But every business owner typically is a visionary, and the visionary is going to move this forward. The visionary is going to come up with this idea, is going to put it out there. So this is something that you absolutely need to be involved in. And in our next episode, part 3 of the fourth part of the part 5-part series. I don't know why I did that. 4C, we're going to talk all about the hiring process itself. But so far, what we've covered is understanding in general why hiring is the name of the game, why staffing is what's going to get you success. In this part, we talked about who should you hire, when should you hire them, and in the next episode, we're going to talk about how do you hire them. I'm looking forward to seeing you then. Take care. Bye for now.